hello and welcome back. We are continuing looking at examples for Python certification. And this episode we're going to deal with, we're going to swing back around a little bit to classes. And this time we're going to look at some of the, we'll call them the type related functions for classes. Now to do this, we've got two classes that we've declared. We've seen these before. When we looked at the inheritance, we've got simple. And then we have simple, which inherits from simple. So very simple, not to get too caught up with that word, but we have a straightforward hierarchy. You have simple, and then you have less simple, which inherits from simple. So it looks something like, if you have like so it'd be something like this, basically that becomes less simple. So just to remember that, I'll just put that there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create one of each just because. And the first thing we want to look at, and actually let's just do a, this will just be value equals ABC. And we're going to do value 2 equals 1, 2, 3. Now let's do that 1, 2, 3 as well. And then actually let's do value 3 equals let's see, 1, 2, 3. And now the first one we're going to look at is type. So what I'm going to do is take each of those and I'm going to do type of simple. And do it again and again and again. And so it's going to be L simple. Value value 2 and value 3. So let's look at each of these. Let's do that, clear it up. That's going to be type functions. There we go. Let's see. Oh, because we've got a random in there somewhere for that ID. Let's just get rid of that. Okay. So we can see here in order. So simple is a class that's defined in main. That's simple. Less simple is going to be whatever the, which is the class that it is declared of. So that is the type. And we can see that we can send a string here value. So it tells us that's an str. It tells us this is an int. This is a tuple. And actually, let's go ahead and do, just to wrap these up, give us a couple different things. Let's do 1.23. It's going to be value 4, 2, 3, and 4. And let's see what it does for that decimal. And we'll see here that that's a float. And so type tells us the type. If it's a native type, it'll give us like string, integer, tuple, whatever. If it's a class, it's going to tell us what the class type is. Now it does tell us where the module is that it is that's been declared, and in this case it's main. We could import it from elsewhere. I'm not going to mess with that. We'll actually cover modules in a different episode and probably see it then. So now let's look at is instance. Now this one becomes, let's do it this way, is instance examples. So let's start with print, let's see, simple, is instance. And so is instance, let's see, is simple going to be an instance of simple. And then let's say what happens is L simple, an instance of simple. And then let's do those two same ones as less simple and see what it tells us. Oop, there we go. And so we get true, true, false, true. So true, true, let's see, so I'll say like true, true. That's false. And that's true. So simple is an instance of simple because we can tell right up here that it is. But it also, less simple is going to be an instance of simple because it inherits. Remember, less simple comes from simple. It's because it's a child. Now, simple is not an instance of less simple. If it's further down the hierarchy, then that's not going to count. So you can't cover it there. And then, or it's not an instance of that. It only works down the hierarchy, not back up the hierarchy. And then, of course, less simple is also an instance of less simple, or else simple is an instance of less simple because that's directly what we're creating it. So notice that else simple is at the same time an instance of simple and also an instance of less simple. So those two are pretty straightforward. Let's try this one. So now let's do is instance. Let's see. Let's do value. Let's see. Is it a string? And then let's see. Is it an int? And let's see. And let's see what comes up here. So value is, it's a string, 1, 2, 3. Now let's see what it tells us it's an instance of. And there you go. The natives examples, it is an instance of a string, but even though 1, 2, 3 is an int, we can convert it to such, it's not an instance. But if we were to go do this, then it's true. So then we've just converted it and said, nope, that's going to be our instance. So let's look at dir. Let's see. So let's print. And let's do simple. Let's try that. So let's do the instance simple and see what happens. So this is going to be dir examples. Oh. And let's clear this and then run it. And so here, when we run simple, this is everything that is a part of, what we see is everything that's a part of this simple class. So we're going to see dump, we're going to see display, my name, value, ID. So let's see, so it has, and these are all things that we can call on simple. So we can get an ID, we can get a class, we can delete an attribute, we can get a dictionary, dir doc, quit format, blah, blah, blah. We get all these, and then let's see, somewhere down here, oh, here we go. And then we get, I think we call it my name and value. Yeah, so we see my name and value. There's my properties, and I did display and dump. There's the methods I specifically created, plus a init is probably going to be in there somewhere. There we go. But I could call any of these. Now, some of these we've seen to some extent, but we're going to continue playing around with these a little bit. So let me look at so what happens if I do simple dot underscore str. Let's see what that does. It gets to the end and it just says it's a simple object, which is interesting. But what I can do is I can actually define that at this level, and I can say, self, and then he's going to return instead of that, which you would recognize if you've done this a lot of times, like in Java or C# or stuff like that. There's a lot of times that we create essentially a toString kind of method so that we can convert it to a string. And so I would say here, if I do self dot my name, and then I'm just going to do it like this. Self dot value. And now, if I do that, there we go, default and default. So now I've overwritten, what you can do, and we've talked about that to some extent, is you can override things. So now I've gone in and overridden the string method. And I can do this with others. So I can actually come in and do things like comparators. So I can do greater thans and greater than equals. Let's look at our class. So now we could, since this is an array, what I can do is I can do print. Well, this will probably blow up because a lot of those don't exist, but I could actually map them if I wanted to. I could probably map each of those, but I'm not going to because those are not, I'm not going to be able, because I'm not going to have the same variables, parameters for each of those. But I do want to do that. Let's print a couple of these out so we can see what they look like. So remember, this is at the simple level. Let's do class, and let's do size of. Ooh, that'd be another good one. And let's just sort of see what it comes up with on these. Whoop. So let's see. So class, let's see, string, class. Oh, yeah. Simple, blah, blah, blah. Oh, here we go. So here, Strimple does that. But class is actually going to generate an instance of that. And then size of is just going to give us, it's basically, this is its size in memory. So there's a bunch of little things we can do playing around with this. The important thing is that we can come in, we can see if things exist and sort of dynamically create things. So that's our dir. So let's do a has attribute. And so let's do that. So now let's see if simple has an attribute called value, called my name. Actually, let's do else simple. Let's do that one first because we're going to see this. So else simple first. I'm going to see if it has a my name. Now we also had it in else simple. We had an address. So what if I do address? And let's see what it comes back with. And so we'll see that it does have an address. It does have a my name. So I could dynamically figure out what I'm doing and say, hey, if it has it, then I'm going to assign it to something. Or I could say if else simple has, let's say, display. Well, let's see. Let's do that. Let's now look at, those are attributes. Let's see what happens when we do methods. So let's do a method up at this level. So let's do just dump get so let's do my address. And then let's see if he has a dump. If he has dump. And yes, they do. So now, so I could say, if he has that, then print simple.dump. And boom, there I get my dump. I've dumped that out. So I can actually determine what's out there. Now, an interesting thing we can do is I can also do a get and a set. So let's say, so I can do so now let me do get attribute dump, and then let me get attribute what was that, address. Let's go look at those two. And so we'll see here, when I do a get dump, then he's going to get, he tells me that there's this method, less simple.dump, that I've gotten. And if I do get attribute address, then it's just going to print out, that address value. Now I could also do, so I can do, let's see, oops. So I can set an attribute. So I could actually come in, let me do address. I'm going to get that twice. So I can also go in and just say, I'm going to set attribute address, and I'm going to call it new value. So let's go look at that real quick. And we'll see that now new value is what the value is. So I could do that. There's easier ways to do it, but you can do it that way. Now let's see what happens if I try to set an address value that doesn't exist. So let's say city equals to New York, and then I try to get city. Boom. I just extended my class by doing a set attribute. So if I get one that exists, then I'm good. Then I'm just working with that. But I can also set it. So if you went back to lambdas, where let's see. So if I create a lambda, and now I do, I'm just going to call it new func. And now I'm going to set an address, set attribute L simple, add one, and then give it new func. And then print string L simple dot new func 1. I'm sorry, it's not called new func, it's called add one. Let's see what happens. Bam, we just added a function. So we just created a function on the fly and then added it to our class. Which is one of the nice, powerful things that we have in Python, is we can actually create classes on the fly and dynamically make changes to them, as we just did. So that gives us our has, get, and sets. Allows us to do some pretty cool stuff. So there's some great ways that we can make, get complicated with our code. But for now, I think that makes most sense for us to stop. I don't want to get too much deeper in it. And that also covered the functions I wanted to cover today. So classes in Python, pretty cool. We will get into some more talking about modules and things like that later on. But I think you probably have seen now we're getting into some of the more, one of the more powerful pieces of Python, maybe not used as much, but that also means, play around with them, pay attention to them, because you're more likely to see those in a certification, because they want to make sure that you've been exposed to all of these different ideas. That being said, we'll wrap it up. So go out there, have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.